All right. I hope you can see the screen. So we want to look at the sources of this wage rigidity that Keynes was talking about. Okay, and the first one is that workers will resist money cuts even if demand for labor falls. Okay, when firms reduce the demand for money, we expect a reduction in the nominal wage, but people won't just allow that. Okay, people are not going to just sit down for their nominal wages to be reduced. And even if they will, it's going to take time, but there will be some resistance. And that's why he's saying that the nominal wage won't quickly adjust to changes in price. So that is one source of the rigidity. And then because of labor contracts, when you are hiring someone, you enter into a written agreement with that person. And that contract lasts for some time, at times years. So whatever is going to happen to wage has already been stated in the contract. So you can't just stand up and be changing the wage that you pay to that particular worker, all because there are changes in price. No, you can't do that. Okay, so people won't just because of the labor contract, the workers' wages are protected to some extent. And the third one is, even if there are no this labor contracts and all that, before you work for someone, there should be some verbal agreement. Okay, there's going to be some verbal agreement. And most of the times when it comes to the real world, what actually happens is that when they realize that there's maybe an increase in the cost of production and others, so they want to reduce their wage bill, they don't reduce the nominal wage. They rather sack people. Okay, they sack people just to reduce their wage bill. Okay, so because of these rigidities, Keynes believes that wages will not automatically adjust to changes in price, and as a result, we will not be having a vertical AS curve. Okay, so if that's the case, then how would the AS curve look like? But in contrast to what we just looked at, as for the theory of labor demand, Keynes believed in what they believed in. Remember, according to them, if you are a firm, you hire labor up to the point where the cost of hiring labor, that is the nominal wage, is equal to the marginal benefit that you get from the worker, which is measured by the marginal revenue product of labor. So you hire wage up to the point, you hire labor up to the point where the wage is exactly equal to marginal products, a marginal revenue product of labor. As for this, Keynes also believed in that. So according to Keynes, the demand for labor was actually the factor that would either restrict or boost output level. Okay, so even when you hold the supply of labor constant, it is the demand for labor that will actually give us the output level, but that is going to direct the quantity of labor that will be hired in the labor market, and thereby the output that quantity of labor will be able to produce. So as for the demand for labor, Keynes agreed to their belief. So now let's look at how changes in price will go through the theory for labor demand, and then it will come and affect the output level. But he stated that he believed that holding supply of labor constant, it is actually the demand for labor that affects the output level. So how does it affect the output level? Let's look at the mechanism. We know that when the firm is in equilibrium, or the firm will have to hire labor up to the point where marginal revenue product of labor is equal to wage. A marginal revenue product of labor is marginal product of labor times price. So just assuming there's an increase in price, then it means that the MPN.P will also increase. So the marginal revenue product of labor, that's the benefit, the actual benefit that the firm gets from hiring labor has increased. Okay, so holding wage constant, MPN.P will be greater than wage. Okay, the benefit they are getting is more than the cost they incur in hiring labor. So what will they do? They will increase their hiring. So N will increase. They will hire more labor, that is N is going to go up. And then given the production function, whenever there's an increase in N, we see an increase in the output level. So you see the relationship between price and then the output level. There's a positive relationship here. When price goes up, we see an increase in the output level. But before this, we saw that even if price increases, there's no change in Y. McKinsey is holding a different perspective, that if there's an increase in price, we see a positive relationship to income. So, and the income level will also increase. So if you look at these two, the relationship between price and then Y, then we are getting an upward sloping aggregate supply curve. Price goes up and then the output level goes up. But here, Keynes was holding wage constant. Okay, there's no change in wage here, assuming wage is fixed. Okay, so now if you look at this diagram here, if you look at the first one, they even ignored the aggregate supply curve, but we are talking about changes in demand for labor. So at the same wage, initially this is the demand for labor, MPN P0, okay, and then N0 number of workers will be hired. So if you come to the production function, we see a relationship between income and then the units of labor. So at N0, we're producing an output of Y0. Now, just assuming, so if you come to the aggregate supply to the initial price is P0, output is what? Y0. So we're having P0, Y0. Now, what if there's an increase in price from P0 to P1? If price increases from P0 to P1, there's an increase in the marginal revenue product of labor. So holding labor supply constant, this is going to happen. There's going to be an increase in the demand for labor. So the labor demand curve will shift to the right. And with the same wage, we see that there's an increase in the quantity of labor that is being hired. So if you go to the production function, an increase in the units of labor means that there's an increase in output. So if you come to the AS curve, price increased from P0 to P1. And what are we seeing? Income has also increased from Y0 to Y1. So you see the positive relationship between price and income. If price has to increase again to P2, aggregate demand will increase again. Aggregate demand will increase again, and then the units of labor will increase to N2. If you go to the production function, output to increase to Y2. So P2 will be merged onto Y2. Okay, it's going to be merged onto Y2. Now, the reason is that the reason why okay, when we are talking about the variable wage, I'll talk about that one. Here, the resources in the economy are not being fully utilized. So it's possible that they can increase their demand for labor without increasing wage. But if you get to YF, where you are using all the resources, then there's no way you can get more labor without increasing the nominal wage that you pay to labor. So this one, there's an assumption that the wage rate is held constant. There is no change in the nominal wage. And if there's no change in the nominal wage, this is what is going to happen. You have a positive or an increasing or an upward sloping AS curve. Okay, so there's a positive relationship between price and then the output level. And this is direct opposite of the first one that we looked at. That one, AS was actually vertical. And as a result, there was no relationship between price and then output level at all. Okay. So based on Keynesian economics, the vertical AS curve doesn't work at all. It doesn't work at all. Keynes believed that whenever you stimulate aggregate demand, there should be a positive effect on income. But then for the vertical AS, we don't see that. Okay, so according to Keynes, the vertical AS isn't what is supposed to happen at all. Okay, so let's look at the upward sloping AS and then AD shocks whenever there are changes in aggregate demand. How does it affect the output level and then the price level? There is another diagram here that will be comparing to this one. I don't even know why it wasn't on the same page, but let's do that. Let's assume that initially this was the equilibrium point, AD0, and then AS. Price was P0, and we had Y0. And from the ISLM, this was the equilibrium. So interest rate R0, and then income was Y0. Okay. Now, just assuming, assuming that here there was an expansionary monetary policy, so an increase in the nominal money. Okay. Please, just a minute. Okay. 05599. Hello. I hope you can hear me. Hello, can you hear me? Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So this was the initial equilibrium with interest rate R0, income Y0. Okay. Then there was an increase in the quantity of money, the nominal quantity of money. So the LM curve shifted from this red one to this green one. So you see the new equilibrium. You see the fall in interest rate from R0 to RC. And as a result, income increased from Y0 to YC because investment will increase and all that. So we know that when there's an increase in money, the quantity of money, then AD curve will shift to the right. So this was the initial equilibrium. So after the increase in the quantity of money, AD curve will shift from AD0 to AD1. So this would have been the new level of income, assuming a fixed price. If price wasn't changing, like the initial assumption that we're holding when we're dealing with the ISLM, assuming there was no increase in price at all, then this would have been the impact of the expansionary monetary policy. Income will increase from Y0 to YC. Okay, but because now we have a vertical and upward sloping AS, after the shift in the AD curve, price will increase. So when price increases, we are going back to the ISLM. After the increase in price, then there's going to be a reduction in real money balance, the real quantity of money. But M1 over P1 will be lower than M1 over P0. There's an increase in price now. So M1 over P is going to fall. So the LM curve will shift backwards from this green to this yellow point. And as a result, we'll see a small increase in interest rates from RC to R1. And because of the increase in interest rates, investment will fall. That is why income decreased a bit from YC to Y1. So because we are allowing price to vary, the impact of the expansionary monetary policy couldn't be as we wanted. It won't be as high as from Y0 to YC, but from Y0 to Y1 because of the latter increase in price. And as a result, M over P will fall, LM curve will shift backwards, interest rate will go up, investment will fall, and then income is going to fall a bit. So given the upward sloping AS curve, this is what happens whenever there's an increase in the quantity of money. Please, I hope you understand. All right. So this is the mechanism, okay? When the nominal money balance goes up, the real money balance will go up because there was no change in price yet. So we have what? Excess supply of money, which means you have excess demand for bonds. Price of bonds will go up, interest rate will fall. Okay, interest rate will fall, and it is falling because of the shift in the downward shift in the LM curve will be as a result of this fall in the interest rate. So the aggregate demand curve will shift to the right. Output will increase. And we saw that after the increase in output with an upward sloping AS curve, price will go up. Okay, when price goes up, there's going to be a reduction in the real money balance. The M over P will fall. So LM curve will shift upwards again. Interest rate will go up. we saw it move from RC to R1. Investment will fall, aggregate expenditure will fall, and then income will fall again from YC to Y1. It didn't fall back to the initial income though, which means that after the expansionary monetary policy, we still saw an increase in income. Okay, so this is an expansionary monetary policy, assuming the AS curve is upward sloping. You can talk about the contractionary one. Everything will work in the opposite direction. So when nominal money supply falls, the real money balance will fall. We have excess demand for money. We have excess supply of bonds. Price of bonds will fall. Interest rate will go up. LM curve will shift upwards. So aggregate demand curve will shift to the left. Income will fall. Price will fall. And because of a fall in price, there will be an increase in the real money balance. And as a result, LM curve will shift to the right, okay, which will mean that interest rate will fall, investment will increase, aggregate expenditure will go up, and then income will fall a bit. Okay, income will fall a bit. So later on, you can go through the diagram, and then you should be able to get the contractionary one. Is it just NY or Jessica? Can you hear me? Hello. Mami Bokia, can you hear me?
Yes, please, I can.
All right. NY, kindly check your network, okay? All right, so that is for the monetary policy. Let's look at expansionary fiscal policy. So initially, we are starting from here. This is the equilibrium. IS0, LM0, interest rate is at R0, income is at Y0. So expansionary fiscal policy will cause the IS curve to shift to the right, okay? So this will be the new equilibrium point. Interest rate will go up. Remember crowding out. Interest rate will go up. Income will initially fall. Income will initially increase up to YC, okay? Let's go to the ASAD. So this was the initial equilibrium, okay? Then this would have been the increase in income. So this would have been the new equilibrium, okay? But because we are not on the horizontal AS, we are dealing with the upward sloping AS. There's an increase in price. And because of the increase in price, there will be a reduction in real money balance. So what is going to happen to the LM curve? It will shift upwards. Okay, so when it shifts upwards, this is going to be the new equilibrium. Okay, so interest rate will increase and investment will fall again. And that is what causes the YC to the income to fall from YC to Y1. So if we come to the ASAD, we see that YC wouldn't be the new equilibrium income, but rather it's going to be Y1 at this equilibrium point, E1. Okay, so that is what happens with expansionary fiscal policy. So let's look at the mechanism. When G goes up, we know income will go up, IS curve shifts to the right, and as a result, there's an increase in interest rate. Why would we have an increase in interest rate? Because of the increase in income, we'll have increase in money demand. So excess demand for money, excess supply of bonds, price of bonds will fall, interest rate to go up. That is why interest rate is going up after an increase in G. Okay. So now that interest rate has gone up, we know that whenever the IS curve shifts to the right, the AD curve will also shift to the right. So when it shifts to the right, price will go up. Okay, price will go up, and as a result, there will be a reduction in the real money balance. So LM curve will shift upwards. Interest rate will increase a bit. Then investment will fall, aggregate demand will fall, and then the income is going to fall from Y to Y. Okay, so please, this is expansionary fiscal policy, so it shouldn't be monetary yet. It's supposed to be fiscal. So that is the effect of an expansionary fiscal policy. So the contractionary will just work in an opposite direction. All right. Now, the analysis that we're doing, we assume that the wage rate was fixed. So even when price changes, we don't see any change in wage. But what if we allow wage to change? Okay, whether wage is changing or not, in the Keynesian model, the AS curve is still upward sloping. Okay, but then there's a difference. So the difference is what we want to look at now. Okay. Now, when it comes to wages, okay, with expectations on wages, the workers will always base the wage that they want to take on past wage, okay, or past prices. If in the past they formed an upward expectations about price, so they were expecting price to increase. So in the current period, whatever wage that they want to take now will be based on the expectations that they formed in the last period. So if we are talking about 2022, the wage that they will be willing to take in 2022 will be based on the expectations they formed about prices in 2021. So when we get to 2022, whatever happens here, their expectations are constant now. They can't change their expectations because their expectations are not based on what is happening now, but what happened in the past. And as a result, they are unable to change whatever quantity that quantity of labor that they want to offer for sale. So supply of labor doesn't change. Okay, supply of labor that doesn't change. Now, whenever there are changes in price now, because now the people are maybe earning higher wages based on the upward expectations that they formed about price previously, they would think that their wages are high. But even when your wages are high now and there is a further increase in price, there's a reduction in your real wage. So the expectations that they are forming, they are using wrong information. Okay, their information here isn't perfect. They are using imperfect information to do their expectations. So even when price increases now, they don't realize that they are actually losing. So when price goes up, there's actual reduction in the real wage, but then they don't see that. So when it happens like that, what will actually happen to the AS curve? Is it going to be a bit different from the upward sloping one that we just saw? So let's look at what happens. Now we are allowing the wage rate to change. It is not as fixed as before. This was the initial equilibrium point. Okay, there's a supply of labor, there's a demand for labor. And then when we go to the production function, the equilibrium labor was N0. So it was giving an output of Y0. So we have N0, Y0. And then this demand for labor curve was drawn for a particular P0. So when at P0, income is Y0. So we have P0, Y0 here. Good. Now, when you increase the demand for labor, okay, if you increase demand for labor on an upward sloping labor supply curve, you will see an increase in wage. You see that there's an increase in wage. The wage isn't constant. Now you see what? You see an increase in N, but just see that the increase in N here is lower than the case where the wage rate was fixed. Assuming the wage rate was fixed, then if labor demand should increase to this point, this would have been the new equilibrium at the market. So N would have been higher than this N1. So if N is higher, then the Y will also be higher than what we see here. We'll compare the two very soon, but I wanted you to see that if wage is constant, then an increase in demand for labor will cause what? A higher N than if we allow wage to go up. You see, the reason is that we are increasing our demand for labor. Firms are increasing their demand for labor when wage was W0. Okay, so they were willing to maybe going for this particular, but then there's an increase in the nominal wage. So definitely there will be a bit reduction in the demand, and that is what is going to cause the N to fall back to this N1. But then at W1, N1, output will be at what? Y1. So if you come to the AS curve, at P1, we see output level what? Y1. If P should increase from P1 to P2, aggregate demand will increase again, N will increase, Y will go up. So we see an upward sloping AS curve. And just by looking at it like this, it's just like when the weight was fixed, but it is not so. Okay, let's combine the two. Okay, let's combine the two. Initially, this was the wage rate Y0. Okay, so this is our labor supply curve. This is our initial labor demand curve. Okay, so if you come to the production line at N0, output was Y0. So this, the demand for labor function was done with respect to this P0. So at P0, we're having Y0. Now, first, let's look at the case of the fixed wage, okay? The fixed wage. Now, after an increase in price, if price increases to P1, okay, there's going to be an increase in the demand for labor. So the labor demand curve will shift to the right. This is going to be the new equilibrium because wage is fixed. So the new N is going to be at N1. Okay, so at N1, if you trace this to the production line, you see the increase in output, Y1. So if you come to the AS curve, at P1, with the fixed wage, we're having what? Output of Y1. So if you join these two dots, then you will get your AS curve with the fixed wage, okay, with the fixed wage. Now, if you come back to the labor market, with the variable wage, after the increase in price, labor demand increase. But then because of the increase in the nominal wage, this is the new N, N1 prime, and it's not as high as the one where the wage was fixed. So if you trace this to the production function, this is going to be the new Y, Y1 prime. So you come to the AS curve, is this YY prime? That Y is lower than the Y under the fixed one. So if you want the AS curve for the variable wage, for the variable wage, this is what we have, this curve here, okay? So comparing the two, you see that the case where the wage is variable, the curve, the AS curve is steeper than this one, okay? It's steeper than the AS curve when the wage rate is fixed, and it has a great implication on AD shocks. Okay, whenever there's a change in aggregate demand, the effect on price and then output with these two curves will totally be different. So actually, though the AS curve is upward sloping for both cases, the impact of an AD shock will totally be different. Okay, will totally be different. So let's look at that shot. Please, what we are doing now, there's a question like that in the PASCO. Now, why is it that when there's an increase in government spending, the effect on output will be less effective when the wage rate is variable than when the wage rate is fixed? So that is what we are doing here. We're to use ISLM and the ASAD to answer that question. Okay. So when you come here, if you have to use that, first you need to draw the ISLM. Okay, so that you can let it be on top like this. Okay, so your initial IS, your initial LM. So this will be the initial output. Then you draw your two AS curves indicating which one is variable and then which one is fixed. Then there's an increase in government spending, okay? And as a result, we see an increase in or a rightward shift in the IS curve. So that is going to cause a rightward shift in the AD curve. So when AD curve shifts from AD0 to AD1, we want to look at the impact on output when wage is variable and then when wage is fixed. When wage is variable, the curve is steep. This is going to be the new equilibrium, okay, at this point. So look at the increase in Y from Y0 to Y15. But then on the fixed wage, this is the new equilibrium. You see that the increase in Y here is higher than this. So the effect here is that whenever there's an aggregate demand shock, for example, an increase in government spending, it will have a greater effect on price, but then a lesser effect on output. But then on the fixed one, on the fixed wage AS curve, it will have a greater effect on output and then a lesser effect on price. So you see that they are not different, they are not the same. Although they are of the same shape, they all slope upwards. The effects are totally different. Okay, the effects are totally different. Okay, please, I hope we understand. Right, so that is it for the variable wage and then the fixed wage models. Now, this is what happens to price and output whenever there are AD shocks and then AS shocks. If there's a shock that affects the aggregate demand, that will cause a shift in the aggregate demand, holding the AS constant. When it happens like that, price and output will move in the same direction. If there's an increase in government spending, and as a result, there's an increase in the AD curve shift to the right, you see that income increases, price will also increase. If it was a decrease, the AD curve will shift to the left. There's a decrease in price, there's a decrease in income. So if you hold AS constant, but then the AD curve shifts, there's no the direction of change is the same for price and then the output. But then if you hold demand constant, AD constant, but then there are shifts in AS, the direction of change in the price and income will be in opposite directions. Okay, it's going to be in opposite directions. So if you look at this, if there's an upward shift in the AS curve, holding AD constant, price will increase and then output is going to fall. So holding AD constant and varying AS will have price moving in a different direction to income. Okay, they move in different directions. And then there's the effect of changes in expected price on the AS curve. Okay, on the AS curve. This is the labor market. This was the initial equilibrium. When labor expect an increase in price, okay, if they are forming a, it's not like price is changing, the actual price isn't changing, but they formed an expectation that there's going to be an increase in price. If there's an increase in price, there will be a reduction in real wage, so they will reduce the quantity of labor that they offer for sale. So the labor supply curve will shift upwards so that the nominal wage can go up. What happens to output? Output falls because N falls. And as a result, there's going to be a leftward shift in the AS curve. There's a shift because there's no change in actual price. Actual price is not changing. It's expected price that has increased. And as a result, there's supposed to be an increase in wage. So N falls and then Y also what falls. So at the same price, AS is falling. Okay, so the AS curve will shift to the left. Okay, AS curve will shift to the left. So this is what happens to AS when there are changes in expected price. And then this one is the effect of an increase in world price of energy inputs. We use energy in production. It's almost like any production process, you need energy. So this is the constant aggregate demand curve. Assuming we're here initially, okay, with the energy prices, whatever price that we have, assuming we expect an increase in the energy prices, the aggregate supply curve will shift to the right. Okay, just like what we saw. It shifts to the right, price will increase, and then income is going to what? Income is going to a fall from Y0 to what? To Y1. Now price has increased. So you realize that when you go to the labor market, those there too will also realize that there is an increase in price. So they will reduce the quantity of labor that they offer for sale. Output will fall again, and then ASK will shift to the left again. That's why if there's an increase in fuel prices, we see spiral increases in price. This price, the price of this good will go up, and this will go up, and then things will just, the price of things will keep on what? Increasing because of this mechanism. We are using the energy as major input for whatever we do. So as soon as we increase price through the AS, it will be shifting upwards, and then the general price level will keep on moving up, and then output will keep on falling. This is what causes the recession. If you don't take your time and this continues, the output levels will be extremely low. Okay? That will cause a recession. Okay? All right. So this is just a summary. Okay, this is just a summary. This is for the vertical AS and then our downward sloping demand AD curve. It doesn't really matter what to do to AD on the vertical AS. There's no change in output at all. It's just price that will keep on increasing. That's why they said money was a veil. If you keep on increasing the quantity of money, aggregate demand will keep on shifting upwards. But because AS is vertical, there will be no change in output. It's just price that will be going up. But if you look at King's own, as soon as there's a change in gen, there's a change in tax, a change in money supply, we'll see a shift in the AS and in the AD. And because AS is horizontal, price will change, and then output will also change. Output will also change. All right. So I guess this is where we will get to. All right. Any question? The time is even up.